Hi, welcome back to Project Overflow. If this is your first time being here, welcome, welcome, welcome. Right, and if you are returning, we love all our viewers and the questions and comments that are coming through. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe because that will really help this content that we have here go out to more people. All right, so do like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell. All right, Zuan, how are you doing? We
So far,
want
so good.
to, yeah, so good. Are you
Yep.
good?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so we want to actually move on to a topic which is a question by our viewers. It's on money management, legacy planning. All right. So but before I go to the question, what is this legacy planning? I think when I first read the question, I had to read it 2 or 3 times before I understood. So what is actually legacy planning, Zuan?
For me, it's planning for the next generation or inheritance, right? That's for me. That is legacy planning in my books. Yeah.
Okay, so leaving. I think legacy means leaving something behind, and over here when we talk about this topic, we are specifically talking about money here. Legacy planning for money management in terms of legacy planning, right? So the question is, in relations to legacy planning, what are some of the things that we can start planning or doing to leave behind an inheritance for our loved ones, our children, insurance children, insurance children, or whatever. All right. So, what do you have in mind, Zuan?
Wow. I think there's a lot of angle to approach this question. And
Okay.
disclaimer again, we're not financial advisors, we're sharing from experience. So always do double check, do your research and get professional advice, okay? Because it's the reason why I do all these disclaimers because we don't know who is going to be watching this content, and also to make sure that our video don't get flagged. All right. So we are just two ordinary people just sharing our experience and what we found out, and also what are we actually doing personally. So I just want to put that out there first. Okay. So coming back to the question, for me, how I approach this is three things. The first one is I do not want to leave behind debt for my next generation. So that is my legacy planning. That means part of my legacy planning is I want to settle all debts that I have. So a lot of times it's the biggest one is definitely house. So our house should be a legacy, right, to pass down. But let's say if I fail to manage that well, and anything happens to me and I'm no longer here, I'm not passing down a legacy or an inheritance. I'm passing that debt down to my loved ones or who because I'm no longer here, right? So my family, my closest, then they have to carry this burden of continuing that. So that is how I approach legacy planning. For me, the first step is to manage that debt. Okay, and there's a few ways of doing it, but what I found out is, and also this was taught to me by my financial planner, is the one of the good approach is the reason of buying life insurance. I didn't know that. So when he was asking me about the reason, what is my purpose of buying life insurance, right? My thinking back then was because I might need it one day. Then when he probed further, he actually taught me that life insurance can be used for a few things, and that can be done to clear debt, or also if the debt is clear, then the amount, if anything happened to me, then that amount can then be dispersed as an inheritance. So the vehicle that I use is definitely life insurance, and the way I buy life insurance is very different after knowing that there is a purpose of buying instead of just buying for the sake of having one, right? So that is me. Then the second thing, that vehicle that I personally use is trust. Okay, so this is, I won't go too much into the details, but trust, the main function of trust is what we call capital preservation, and also then we can also plan the disbursement of the money from the trust. So these are the two vehicles that I use, or instruments that I use in my legacy planning at this stage. Okay, so that is just what I have.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Zuan. I think you've jumped the gun a little bit. We're actually having to split this segment because it's a huge segment into two. But thank you so much. We'll come back to the two vehicles that you talked about.
Okay.
And we will actually delve into other vehicles that are out there that people can actually start looking into. But let's look at the principle, or the whole logic of doing estate planning or legacy planning, so to speak, right? I think another word that people talk about is estate planning, but when we use estate, people really think about estate like a land, right? But in fact, this word legacy planning in our modern day understanding did actually come from the word estate planning, because those days people used to own land, right? And when they die off, where do this land go to? Those days also people have, averagely 10 kids or 10 children, and how do you split the land to 10 children? So that's why they have this thing called estate planning. But I think in today's terms, that has changed quite a bit. And that's why the term legacy planning comes about. I think coming back to the principle of legacy planning, we've heard of people, families teaching their children to save and leave behind inheritance or something to give to your children, right? And you're right, the first thing to do is not to leave debt behind, obviously, right, to burden them. In fact, I think a lot of people in this modern day and time, in the 21st century, will actually be left with debt by their fathers, or when this generation have children, they will be leaving debt behind. That's because of not understanding how to plan for their legacy. So the first thing for me, in terms of a concept or principle, is don't leave debt, but leave something that is useful, right? Then the second thing for me, okay, again, the disclaimer stands. We're really not we're not licensed, so to speak. But this is from from one bloke to the next, okay, or one family man to the next, and how we look at it. And we also would like to solicit from you, get from you guys who are listening, or you've jumped in, if you've got any ideas, or you've tried any other forms that you'd like to share, do share in the comments below. And if you've got any questions, do ask those questions, because we'd love to specifically answer your question if that pertains to you directly. Okay, so the second thing for me is, do I leave an inheritance for my kids, or do I leave an inheritance, and how do I do that? I think that whole structure is very important, because I have personally seen and experienced, from friends that are with me, that their parents pass away and then they get an inheritance, and immediately, what do people do when they come into money, a large sum of money suddenly? What do people do? What do you think people will do?
They spend it.
Spend it. That's right. And that's why, if you look at statistics, those people who buy the lottery and actually win the lottery, statistically 99%, actually now it's 100%. They haven't found anyone who actually hit the big sweep or the lottery. And the statistics is averagely 3 to 5 years, they would have gone back exactly to where they were. And the reason is because the sudden influx of funds will make them go crazy in terms of spending. So in that sense, if we know that may happen, or people when there's a mishap in the family, and the patronage or the person is gone, the one who used to manage finances is gone. Now suddenly, all that management has come to the next of kin, which is probably the children. What do you think in terms of the skills that they have? Father to be able to manage this. So I think the most important thing in legacy planning is not just leaving an inheritance behind or leaving a legacy behind in terms of funds, but also to continually now inculcate or teach or train our children to be able to start to manage wealth. Okay, because if they understand the word wealth and not just money, they will look at things very differently. And that's how I take it. Okay. So the third thing is, I also recently found, the good book it came from the good book. Okay. Now I think, probably we'll put it in this description. So if you're a Christian, you can actually look at the Bible. It says, a good man will leave an inheritance for his children's children. I think that really, really caught my attention. And practically, if you look at that, right, if I left, I was just sharing this to another friend of mine, of ours, actually on Wednesday, just before the lockdown. He came to the office, and I was sharing with our friend Ryan Zuan. He was asking, about this, and I said, I'll leave it to my children's children. The reason is a few things. Number one, they have to have children to be able to see that money. Because if they don't have children, it won't go to them. So if they have children, if it goes to my children's children, then what I will pass on is the management of these funds that is going to okay, so let's go back, rewind a little bit. Okay, so the money is to be able to be for my children's children instead of to my children, right? So the education for my children to manage these funds is what I'll give to my children, because then they would learn how to manage the money that they will make, and they then give it to their children's children instead of their children. So if we start this, I found it to be amazing, because number one, they need to have their own children. If they don't have the children, then this money will be given away to charity. So they have to have their own children, okay? So then they don't have to worry about funding their children's education, because grandpa has already done it. So what they need to do is start to build a legacy for their children's children. So it skips one generation. I think the Chinese has the saying, right? Wealth cannot go past 3 generations. And that's because it's all passed down to the children. And the Bible makes it very clear, leave an inheritance for your children's children. It didn't say for children. So that is something that in terms of a principle, I think it's very interesting. What do you think, Nazwan?
Yeah, I agree, and also I feel that it's legacy it shouldn't be just for our children, right? But what you say, children's children. So in order to plan, if we can see the purpose of it, it's not just, hey, I just want to make money for myself or make enough for myself, and then my kids can take care of themselves. I guess and by understanding how far ahead are we planning is generations actually. So legacy is actually generation. So once we have that in mind, we can definitely know how to plan better. And also, which brings us to the next video. Later, we will discuss what are the vehicles that we use, what is the purpose of it. Because being clear of the purpose, then we can know how to plan better. And also, the best time to start is actually now. Because if we are planning for something that we would want to last for, let's say, 30 years, 50 years, or even 100 years, when we're not around anymore, then it should start now, instead of when later on when we are older or when we settle. So that is my takeaway from your what you just shared, Eugene.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? And I as you were talking, I just think back about those the great families, in terms of wealth, in Malaysia even, right? If you look at that, right, they actually started, and the people who own, let's say, property or land in the Golden Triangle of Kuala Lumpur, let's say, right? So you have, YTL, you have Laoyat, and all these different ones that from those days, and they pass down. Do you think their children will sell that land? I don't think so, because the amount of money that they earn from just from renting or leasing it out it's more than enough to feed the generations to come. Mm-hmm. So you see, if today you are someone who it's not in that category where you are blessed that way, then think about now starting that legacy so that you can bless your children's children and the generations to come. I think that in terms of a principle is what we want to share with everyone. So if you're looking at money management, like what Zuan said, if your goal is long term, 100 years, building a legacy that will last 100 years or 1,000 years even, right? So then the way you plan for it will be very different, okay? Because now we are planning really, really short term. Our legacy is, the house that I own, the house that I own today, when I die, I pass to my children. but most of us live in condominiums, or we live in areas whereby the house that we have is actually leasehold. Okay, in Malaysia, leasehold means that it is the parcel that our house is built on is leased from the government. And after 99 years, the government has every right to take it back and give you zero sum, because you don't own the land, you're just leasing that piece of land. All right, and people pay top dollars for that. So they're actually paying top dollars, not for the land, but for the bricks that will last maybe 20, 30, 40 years. You know, the pipes and the electrical lines that may only last 20 years, and you need to uproot and change that again. So think about this, and when we talk about legacy planning, money management, we're talking about far beyond after you've gone. All right, so part two of this segment in money management, in terms of legacy planning, we're going to go into the different types of legacy that we can pass down. Okay, so that will be in the next episode. All right, so don't forget to turn on the notification bell, because when that comes out, you'll be notified to hear what we think or what we already have. I will clap again, okay? So I let them go down first. It's the delivery. All right, so make sure you come back and watch the next episode, because the next episode will talk about the different modes that we can do to now create this legacy planning for our family. All right, so we'll see you again in the next episode. We will catch you then. Bye-bye.